we're going to do to make this feel spooky is adjust the color of the eyes. The goal of this is to show you how you could make a selection and change color on just a selection, and again manipulating layers and masks. So we're going to zoom in, and I use keyboard shortcuts Command plus and minus to zoom in and get a closer look at the eye. I am going to, with my background layer, the only layer we have right now selected, I'm going to get the lasso tool. You could use a number of tools to make a selection, but what we want to do is make a selection around the iris. So I'm just going to loosely click and drag with my mouse to grab the shape of the iris. I missed a little bit, so I'm going to hold shift and add to that selection. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to mask the edge to make it smooth. But if you needed to take away, if you got too much, let's say I got a little bit of the white of the eye, I can hold the Option key while I click and select to remove a part of my selection. So this is pretty good. From here, with the selection on my one layer, I'm going to copy and paste. So there are a couple ways I can do that. I can go to Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste. I could also use the keyboard shortcut, Command C and Command V to paste. And then if you look in your layers, you can see what we created. Just this tiny, I turned the background layer off and we have a tiny sort of jelly bean, licorice jelly bean shape, which is our the iris, and the background is underneath. I'm going to go ahead and double click on the layer name and type iris. I like to name my layers to help keep them organized and know which layer is which. Right now it seems clear enough, but when we have a big stack of layers, it's helpful to have some naming on them. We're going to change this top layer by adjusting the levels. We want to bring more light so that then we can apply a color. So I'm going to go up to Image, Adjustments, and Levels. The keyboard shortcut for that is Command L. And we're going to take down the mid-tone. So the middle slider here, we're going to add light to the middle tones. So I'm really lightening it. And then I'm also going to take the left slider just a tinge over so that we still have the depth of the pupil there. And I'll click OK. Now we're going to make a selection again. And so there's a couple of ways to do this. We could get our lasso tool and select this shape again, right? There's a quicker way, which I wanted to remind you, which is to hold the Command key on a Mac or Control key on a PC and click the thumbnail of that layer. You can see when I hold Command that my mouse or my little selection tool that's a hand becomes a hand with a little marquee, a rectangular marquee. That means it's going to make a selection. So when I click that, it selects that layer as a whole. And with that selection, I'm going to make a new adjustment layer. In the panel, the layer panel, if I go down to the bottom icons, this circle that's filled halfway, I choose that. That's my adjustment layer. And I'm going to select Hue Saturation. And if you look in the layers, what happened is it created a new adjustment layer, but there's a mask attached to that adjustment layer. That means it's only going to adjust that selection and not the whole of the artwork. So if I did just go down without making a selection and clicked adjustment layer, hue saturation, my mask is blank. That's connected to that. And if I make any adjustments here, it's going to change the whole art. I'm going to get rid of that because I don't want that. I just want to adjust the iris. All right, so with that layer selected, the hue saturation adjustment layer that we made, I want to check this box called colorize. What this does is it sort of reads the value of the selection and applies a color, almost like a monochromatic color. If I don't check colorize, it's changing the hue of all the different colors that it reads in the pixels. Colorize will give an overall color cast and borrow just the values. So choose colorize and then play with the hue. You can decide the color that you would like to do. I'm going to go with a kind of yellow-green. You could also up the saturation if you wanted it to be a bit extreme. And you can also play with lightness or darkness. I'm going to leave mine at 0. Okay, once you're satisfied with your color, you can zoom out and see what you've done. We have an issue here where our eye that we created, our selection wasn't perfect, but also it's a really hard edge because we've created more contrast right there that doesn't really match the color space of the photograph. So we're going to do something here to blend that in. We're going to select these 2 layers, so the iris layer and the adjustment layer. Hold Command key to select 2 layers, and then merge those together. But instead of actually merging, we're going to group them. So let me back up. With those 2 layers selected, go to your little sandwich to view options, and you'll find something that says New Group from Layers. If I click that, I can name this layer, and I'm going to name this one Iris Color, and click OK. And now I have a little folder that if I open it by toggling that arrow, I have 2 layers inside, my adjustment layer and my iris with the levels that we adjusted. I can add a mask now onto this group. So down in the layers panel, I'm going to select Quick Mask to apply to that folder, that group. And for this mask, I'm going to use the paintbrush. I'm going to grab the paintbrush tool. Up at the top, I've been playing with the opacity, but I want to bring the opacity all the way up to 100%. I also want to make sure I have a soft round brush. You might have to open up general brushes to see what's there. You can also adjust the hardness and the softness in the slider up at the top. You can adjust the size in the slider up at the top. I like to use my keyboard shortcuts of the brackets. If I use the left bracket, it gets smaller. The right bracket gets bigger. And I'm going to make mine about this size, so maybe this a little bit smaller than the pupil. And brush along the edge of this iris selection that we have, just to sort of blend and soften that hard edge. I'm going to do it along the top and along the bottom. And then I'm also going to lower the opacity of my brush to maybe, we'll try between the 30s and the 40s. And go along again that edge to soften that contrast. And I can even brush right on to where my pupil is to sort of soften that contrast change as well. So just using the mask to say, don't show these areas, and using a very soft and transparent brush to soften the edge of that mask, of that shape. If I zoom out, you can see the effect. And the one final step for this is once we're satisfied with our eye color change, I'm going to make a copy of this by right-clicking and going Duplicate Group. And then just like we did with the face, I'm going to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. And with my Move tool selected, I'm going to use my arrows on the keyboard and hold the Shift key to shift those to the other side of the face and nudge them into place onto the other eye to match my left eye. Here we go.